Welcome to Historical Table Summer Picnics. I'm Rachael Beyer, the John W. Emery family, Assistant Curator of Oral History at History Colorado. Today, I'm going to share a couple of recipes featuring the fruit that was the highlight of every summer picnic in the 1910s, the banana. The banana came to the United States in the 19th century, but it wasn't until the late 1890s that it became really popular when several fruit importers merged into the United Fruit Company. This ad from the T.W. Langley grocer in Pueblo encouraged steelworkers to compare the price of their bananas, 10 cents for 1 dozen choice bananas, to other markets in town. People saw bananas as exotic when they first appeared on the scene, and rightfully so, as they grew in tropical climates unfamiliar to most Americans. In Newcastle, the Ladies' Aid Society served bananas as a topping at their ice cream social and encouraged their neighbors to come and partake of the good things. Our first recipe today is taken from an 1897 article in the Florence Daily Herald, and it's called the Banana Charlotte, which is a modern take on a dessert dating back to the early 1800s. To begin our banana charlotte, we need to start by soaking our gelatin, 1.5 tablespoons, in 1/3 cup of cold water. I'm just going to pour that over the top of the gelatin. Swirl that around a little bit because we want to let that bloom. I'm going to put that aside. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take one of our 5 bananas that we're using for this recipe. It's a lot of bananas. And we're going to line our mold. Now there is a specific I should say, not banana charlotte, but a specific mold for charlottes. You can still buy them online. However, you can also use a tart pan. I'm just gonna cut my banana into slices, and then I'm going to line the edge of the mold with them. This mold isn't going to get baked or anything, so if your bananas stick over the top a little bit, that's okay. Just want to get them all around the edge. Once I have my tart tray lined, I'm just going to set that aside. Next, I'm going to process my 4 other bananas in the food processor. I'm going to throw those extra few pieces of banana from my tart into there. If you don't have a food processor, but you happen to have a potato masher, you can use a potato masher to do the same thing. We just basically want to get our bananas pulpy and all mushed up. So food processor, potato masher, if you don't have either of those 2 things, you can just do it by hand because bananas, when they're ripe, are nice and soft. Okay, so once I have those bananas all pulped up, it's going to look almost like a banana smoothie. They're nice and soft. So once we have our bananas processed, we're going to put those into a medium saucepan. And we're going to put them on the stove and we're going to scald them. So we want to get a little bit of the sugars in the bananas turning brown, getting that scalded. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on the stove, probably on like medium-high heat, and then stir continually until I get some browning on those bananas when they're scalded. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to juice my orange or my lemon. Using an orange versus a lemon really depends on how tart you want it to be. It's also going to be balanced out with the bananas and with pineapple juice, but I'm going to use an orange. I'm just going to cut my orange in half. And I will take whatever juice the orange wants to give me. It's very easy to do by hand, but if you've got a juicer, you can definitely do that. So my banana is starting to scald a little bit, so I'm going to just kind of stir that, getting some little bit of browning on the bottom. My banana's starting to turn kind of a little bit of a different color. I'm just going to stir that. I think I've got a good scald on it, so I'm going to add 1 cup of sugar, and I'm going to put it back on the heat and stir it until the sugar is completely dissolved, and then I'm going to remove it from the heat. So while our banana mixture is cooling, we're going to turn our attention back to the gelatin, which should look about like this. And we're going to add 1/3 of a cup of boiling water. We're going to mix that in, and the gelatin's going to be gelatiny. So we want to dissolve that in the boiling water. Once we've completely dissolved our gelatin, we're going to add our orange or lemon juice, which is also about 1/3 of a cup. So far at this point, once we add this, we've got to add about 1 cup of liquid. So we're going to add that in. And then we're going to add 1 cup of pineapple juice. You do not want to use fresh pineapple juice on this because otherwise it won't set. So you want to use bottled or canned pineapple juice. We're going to just mix all of that together. And then we're going to put that over. I've got some ice in the bowl here. We're just going to set that over some ice water to let that cool. And while we're doing that, we are going to whip 4 egg whites, which I've already separated out and left in the fridge until I'm ready to use them. The colder your egg whites are, the faster they will form stiff peaks. So what we want to do is we want to beat our egg whites to stiff peaks. And while our gelatin mixture is cooling. We know we have stiff peaks when we pull the mixer up and get those little peaks there. So we're ready with those. One thing I will mention here is that we now know a lot more about health and safety than they did back in the 1800s. And we know that we don't eat raw eggs anymore. So in order for me to make this recipe, I picked up those pasteurized eggs that are safe to eat raw to make sure that our egg whites, because the egg whites aren't going to get cooked. So now it's time for us to assemble everything. So we've got our egg whites, we've got our gelatin mixture, and we've got our bananas. So here we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do, because we don't want to take all the air out of our egg whites, is that we're going to put a little bit of the gelatin mixture in with the egg whites, and we're just going to carefully fold that in. And the egg whites will break down a little bit. That's okay. We're just going to pour that in until it's completely mixed in. Once we've got that pretty much folded in, now we're going to fold in the bananas. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to put a little bit of the banana in at a time and just get that all folded in there. Once we have all of that combined, we're going to pour it into our mold. Here, bring back the mold, and it's not all going to fit. I'm just going to warn you, particularly if you're using a tart pan, it's not all going to fit, and that's okay. But we're going to pour it all the way up to the top because we're not baking this. So I'm going to just kind of push this around a little bit so that it goes in between those banana slices that we put in earlier. So I'm just going to take it and just tap very gently. I don't want to take the air out of those egg whites, but I also want to make sure it gets into all the nooks and crannies of our tart pan. And then I'm just going to cover it and put it in the fridge. Once it's completely chilled, it will set up. It's got gelatin in it, so it will set up as a nice firm dessert, and we'll pull that out at the end of the video so that we can take a look at it and garnish it and get it ready to eat. Okay, so while our Charlotte chills in the fridge, let's go ahead and move along to our next recipe. Now, by 1911, the United Fruit Company was importing more than 3 billion, with a B, bananas into the United States per year. And Americans were going bananas for the new fruit, eating around 3 dozen a year. Articles like this syndicated reprint in the Elbert County Tribune helped educate new banana consumers as to where and how their favorite fruits were grown. Bananas became synonymous with picnicking. You wondered when I was going to get to the picnics, here it is. And they took pride of place in group photos, always held front and center by one of the picnicking party members. The availability and popularity of bananas, at picnics or not, was skyrocketing, and Americans began to eat them outside of special occasions as well. Doctors encouraged the consumption of bananas for sensitive stomachs, using articles to call them nourishing and saying that they should be served often. This 1911 recipe for fritters from the San Miguel Examiner would have been commonplace to women, with the exception of the addition of bananas. Fritters were used for all sorts of things, both sweet or savory, in the 19th century. And so the addition of bananas would take a familiar recipe and turn it into something a little less than commonplace. So let's go ahead and begin our fritters. The first thing we're going to do is peel and mash 3 bananas. And unlike our banana charlotte, we want to keep these a little bit more intact. So we're not going to put them in a fruit processor. I'm just going to peel them, and we're going to put them in a bowl, and we're going to mash them up with a fork, or if you've got a potato masher, you can use that. But you don't want to mash it as thoroughly as you did the bananas last time, because we still want some banana texture. Okay, so that looks pretty good as far as where we want our bananas to be for our banana fritters. So we can go ahead and set that aside. Next thing we're going to do is mix our flour, baking powder, sugar, and salt, which I already did, and set that aside. And then we're going to beat 1 egg until light. I had 4 egg yolks left over from our banana charlotte. And so I'm just going to use 2 egg yolks to equal 1 egg for this recipe, so that I'm not using up some of those egg yolks. I'm just gonna put that in there. And then we're going to blend them until they change color to a lighter yellow. Okay, so once those have lightened up just a little bit, I'm gonna add 1/3 cup of milk to our egg yolks. Then I'm going to add our dry ingredients. Then we're going to add a teaspoon of lemon juice. And I actually happen to have a lime in the fridge, so I just did a teaspoon of lime juice. Limes go with bananas, right? You get those tropical flavors together. And then finally adding our bananas. All those bananas in there. So because we are adding the bananas in, and the bananas actually are more than half of our batter. This is going to be a very wet batter. And I just want to mention that because we'll get a little bit more water splatter when we fry these up. So you just want to be careful with your oil when you're frying. And that's all ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and heat my oil. So I put my oil on high, and I'm just going to use canola oil. It's a good oil for frying because it can withstand high heats. You probably don't want to use olive oil. Olive oil doesn't like to be super heated. We want to bring it up to a boiling oil, is what our original recipe calls for it, to drop it into boiling oil. So we're going to bring our temperature up on our oil and get that ready to go. And our fritter mixture is ready. So in just a minute, as soon as that's ready, we'll go ahead and boil them, or fry them, I should say. So once my oil's to around 350, I like to do a test, just a little test fritter first to see how it goes. I like my fritters to be a nice golden color. So once I get that, I know that my oil is hot. The one thing you want to keep in mind is that when you drop those fritters in, they will puff up about double their size because of the baking powder. So make sure you make your fritter drops small so that you don't end up with too enormous, because if it's too big, it won't cook all the way through before it's browned. So once I have my fritters all fried up, I'm just going to do some powdered sugar over the top. And those are all ready to be served. Don't they look great? And you want to do it when the oil's still a little bit warm so that powdered sugar sticks really well. So we've reached the moment of truth, and I'm crossing my fingers that everything comes out of the mold okay. I'm not the most gracious of chefs or bakers, and so I oftentimes get things that taste really great but aren't necessarily the prettiest. However, I think we're going to be okay because, let me show you, the tart is starting to pull away from the edge of the pan. So the charlotte is actually coming back away from the edge of the pan, which is what we want. So I'm going to push on the bottom of my pan. I have a tart pan, so the bottom comes free of the ring. And let me just tilt this down so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just lifting up my tart and I'm pushing the bottom, and you can see that we're coming loose on basically all the sides. So I'm going to come around and make sure all those pieces come loose. And then I'm just going to take my plate, turn it over. And from my pan that I had it on, you can see that some of the gelatin seeped out, but I don't think that that's going to be an issue for us. I'm going to gently pull that up and get some of this loosened. Let's see, I'm going to take a spatula here. Will I do it, folks? That's the question. Just sliding underneath here. I think we're almost there. Ooh, no. Oh, I'm going to have a mess on my hands here. Oh, yep. The center of my tart is completely sticking. So I'm going to just push that down. Okay, well, guess what, folks? I ended up with a very ugly, I did not nail it. Okay, we have a very ugly banana charlotte. Get that off. I think you can see the potential though. Can you see the potential in my banana charlotte? We have this lovely ring around the top. And the last step of our banana charlotte is garnishing it with whipped cream. So let's see if that works. I picked up a can of whipped cream. Here we go. Look at that. my very ugly top of the banana charlotte has turned into something that is not so bad looking after all. So I think we lucked out okay because we have the whipped cream. Oh goodness. So anyway, I hope that you have enjoyed our 2 banana recipes. If you want to find out more about why bananas were such a big deal in the 1910s, particularly at summer picnics, please join us for our live program on June 22nd, where I will dig in deeper into not only the banana topic of why bananas were so popular, but we'll also spend more time talking about how Coloradans used summer picnics to come together as communities and to enjoy the beautiful countryside that we have here in Colorado in the summer by going on picnics. So I really hope you'll join me. Thank you very much. I'm Rachael A. Beyer, the John W. Emery Family Assistant Curator of Oral History at History Colorado, and this has been Historical Tables Summer Picnics.